The average if and average if functions are on page 43, and they're a little bit different than what we've seen with the count if. You'll see the explanation at the very end of the first paragraph there, where it breaks down the various parts of the average if function. And again, you average a range of cells if a certain condition is met. Same thing with average ifs. There'll be multiple criteria that have to be met in order for it to average a certain range. So you can read through those two paragraphs that are on page 43. And then in Project 1D, we're going to carry on in our summary area. And if you'll look down in the by rating, the average estimate. Now what they're looking for here is they want to find the average claim estimate based on each of these ratings. So in other words, if the rating, you'll notice this here, if the rating is 1, then it wants the computer to average the claims for all the 1 ratings. If the rating's 2, then it'll average all the 2 ratings for the claim estimates. Okay? So in M16, again, we're going to start out going through the insert function dialog box. It's still statistical, so we'll leave that there. You can see the average if. I'll go ahead and double click on that. The range for the criteria, okay, right here together, the range for the criteria is rating. So you can either select it or you can type in, we've named that range rating. The criteria for the first one has to be a 1. Okay? The other thing you can do here is if you had 15 ratings, it might be a good idea to use the cell reference in which those are located, which that would be fine too. If I take out the 1 and just point and click in the cell that has a 1, that would work fine too. If that criteria is met for the rating, then we want to average. The average range is our claim estimate. Again, the name of that range, claim estimate, or you could select it in your worksheet. And I'll click OK. Notice now for all the number 1 ratings, the average claim for the number 1 ratings is 2,691. And we'll come back and format that in just a minute. Okay, we're going to go through it one more time and then we'll autofill down. I'm going to go back to the insert function dialog box. Average if, because we only have 1 condition. The range that we're wanting to find the rating for is called rating. The criteria, again, you could type in a 2 here, or if you want to click in the cell that represents 2, you can do that. And then the range is claim estimate. Okay, so for all those ratings that have a 2, then the computer averages the claim ratings for the 2. Okay, and then from here we could autofill down. And I want you to check, this is rating 3. If you look at the formula, average if, rating is our range for the criteria. K18 is 3, and then claim estimate is the average range that we're wanting to have the computer average for us. So it is moving down relative to whatever row it's in, so that works out just fine. They do want us to apply the comma style, so I'm going to select that range of cells, go back to the Home tab. In the number group, I'm going to choose comma style and then decrease decimals. Okay. Now if we move down just a little bit further, we're going to take a look at the average ifs, plural, function. Now in this one, we're still looking for the average estimate for the claims, the claim estimate amounts, if the rating is 2 and if the driver is 1. So there are 2 criteria that have to be met here in order or before the computer will actually average the claim estimates. Okay, so we'll take a look at that. Again, I'm going to go back into the insert function dialog box. Since there are 2 criteria, we're going to use the ifs, count average ifs function. The average range, now this is a little bit different. The average range, remember, is claim estimate. Okay, claim estimate. So I'm going to go ahead and type in claim estimate. The first criteria, we're going to use the rating. So the rating for that, for this first one, the rating has to be 2. So I'm going to type in a 2. The second range deals with driver, and again, we called that driver, but just to make sure here, we actually called it driver number. That's right. I'm going to select it. It'll pull in the name of the range, driver number, and the criteria for that one is 1. Okay? So again, this one is a little bit different. Notice when we did the average if, when there was only one criteria, the average range was at the bottom. So you really need to be careful. Watch what the label is on the left and then put in the appropriate range of cells or the name of the range of cells. Okay? Alright, so the average claim estimate for a customer with a rating of 2 and driver number 1 is 6,272. We'll format those to commas in just a minute. And then we'll go ahead to the next one. Again, this time we're looking for a rating of 3, driver 1. Okay, so we'll go back to the insert function dialog box. Multiple criteria have to be met, so it's average ifs. The average range is claim estimate. First criteria is for rating, and that rating has to be a 3. Notice it has to be a 3. Driver number has to be a 1. Okay, so again, the average claim estimates for the rating driver with a rating of 3 and driver number 1 is 8,280.5. Sorry. Okay, and then we'll format both of those to comma and 0 decimal. So I'm decreasing the decimal. Okay. All right. Now going back up to the top of the summary area. Total estimates. Okay, total estimates, total of anything is sum. So we're going to sum the claim estimates if it's A plus paint and body. Sum total estimates if it's JFJ auto. So we're going to use the sum if function. So I'm going to start out FX. Sum if is actually in math and trig, so we'll have to switch categories. And sum if. Only one criteria needs to be met though, okay? We're looking for the repair shop name. So just a singular one. The range is repair shop, so rep shop. The criteria for the first one, and again, you could type in A plus paint, or you could click in that cell that represents that, which would be K4. And then we want it to sum the claim estimate range. Okay. We've got 16,656. So again, we'll do it one more time, but you could autofill down since we've used cell references that represent each of these names. So if I go back in, we're in the math and trig category. Again, sum if. The range, and these criteria that we're wanting, the range that has the criteria is rep shop. The criteria needs to be JFJ auto. So again, you can type in JFJ auto here, or you can click in the cell that represents that. And then we're going to sum the claim estimate range. Okay. All right. And then from here, I think we'll just autofill down. Okay. And then we'll format those again, comma, 0 decimals. All right. So I think we've got the summary area all filled out using COUNTIF. There's the COUNTIF here. COUNTIFs here. Average if. If the rating was a 1, we average the claim estimates. And at the bottom, we use the average again, but now 2 criteria needed to be met. Rating 2 driver 1 and rating 3 driver 1. And then finally, the sum if was used. Okay? Now, at the top of page 48, and they talk about managing range names, and in this one we're actually going to delete a range that we named, and then we're going to edit another one. So we're going to first of all delete the auto number range that we had first. So to do that, to go in and manage your named ranges, we are going to In the Formulas tab, in the Defined Names group, we'll go to Name Manager. And this will list out all the ranges that we have named. They want us to delete auto number, so I'm just selecting, and this would be for any of them. You would select whichever one that you want to delete, so I'm going to select that. Click on the delete button, and it asks for confirmation. Yes, we want to. Then while we're in there, they want us to also edit a range name. The claim estimate, they want us to go ahead and write that out instead of abbreviating estimate. So we're going to edit, and if you click on edit, notice you can put in a new name here, but you could also change the range itself. You could come in and select that, and if you wanted to add another row, or maybe you put in an extra row that shouldn't be there, you can certainly redefine your named range here as well. So, but all they wanted us to do in Project 1G was to change the name. So we've edited the name. Click OK. That takes us back out to the Name Manager, and I'll just close out of that. And then if you'll check the name box again, notice claim estimate. It's still the same range, but it's named differently. And then also notice auto number has been removed or deleted as we went through that. You saw us doing that. In Project 2, we're going to take a look at the VLOOKUP function in particular, but there's also an HLOOKUP, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the chapter, the V part of that lookup function stands for vertical, which basically means when we look at a table, it'll be in a vertical setup, and the HLOOKUP is if your table is in a horizontal manner. But in the middle of page 49, it talks about the function itself, and the VLOOKUP function allows you to look up a value in a range and then have it return a result to a corresponding cell. And they give an example of grades, a letter grade, which most of us can kind of relate to, but a lot of it, we know that we have a grading scale of 90 to 100, 80, 89, and so on. So if you had a list of percentages, if you had an 89, 79, whatever, the computer would look up that particular number in the table and return a letter grade to your cell. So great example there. They explain that probably a little bit better than I did in the middle of page 49. At the bottom of page 49, they also break down the VLOOKUP function and tell you the different parts of that VLOOKUP function. So go ahead and read through that. And then on page 50, they break it down too, telling you what each part of the VLOOKUP function, how that's made up. So the we'll probably only, for our particular purposes here, like on a test or whatever, you probably only use the 3 argument parameters that you see in the description area there: the lookup value, table array, and column index number. However, an example in the book, they talk about the range lookup, and for that range lookup, you'll either enter a true or false, it says, to instruct Excel to find an exact match for the lookup value or an approximate match. So, and if this parameter, like I said, if you leave that out, then Excel assumes that it's true, which means that if an exact match is not found, then Excel returns the value to the next largest number that is less than the lookup value. So if you leave that blank, it'll assume true. If you enter false, then Excel only returns exact matches to the lookup value. So in other words, like with a grade table, if you've got scores that are 60 or below, a lot of times you're not going to find an exact match. You'll only find the lower level of that. So anyway, read through that, and then we'll do Project 2, which, if you'll notice, the VLOOKUP example at the bottom of page 50 has now this again is a vertical table on the right hand side because you're reading it down. There's a salary grid, the ratings 1 through 5, starting salary, notice 31 through 38. And if you look in the actual worksheet, the salary grid, what's in column D there, whatever the rating is, it'll look it up in the reference table there on the right hand side and return what the starting salary is. But your VLOOKUP function will actually go into cell E4 through E13. So if you want to study that a little bit, get a better understanding of that, you certainly can. In Project 2, it does have us opening up a workbook called Precision Prices and then save it as Excel 2, which I left that out, but Excel Level 2, Chapter 2, Project 2. So this one's kind of set up for us automatically, but you can see what's going on here. There's a product list, price list, describes the product, discount category, list price, and then what the discount is and net price. If you look over to the right, there's actually a discount table. So if the discount category is A, B, C, D, or E, then you apply a certain percentage. So for example, for the first one, discount category is A, so that would mean that that particular product receives a 10% discount. Notice the next one down is C, and that would receive a 14% discount. So you could manually go in and put in the 10%, 12%, and all that, but if you had 100 of these, it'd be easier if we use the VLOOKUP function so that the computer looks at the category in cells C4, C5, or whatever, and then goes to the discount table and returns the discount that it needs. And then from there, once we determine what the discount is going to be, then the net price will actually be the list price minus the discount. So we'll have a couple of formulas in here. So let's start out with the discount. In cell E4, I'm going to go into the insert function dialog box. The category, it is lookup and reference since it's VLOOKUP, and the VLOOKUP is at the very bottom. So I'm just scroll to the bottom, you'll see VLOOKUP. And in the lookup value, okay, you want to ask yourself, what is it that I'm wanting to look up? Okay, what is it you're trying to determine whether it's a percentage? Well, the lookup value is your discount category. So I'm going to click in cell C4. The table array is your discount table. That's where the information is located. That's your table. Now, we'll see. Essentially, we want to only select the contents. You don't want to select any of the titles here. So H4 through I8, and you'll find here, since we're going to auto-fill down, this will be a problem because as you auto-fill down, it'll go H5 to I9, H6 to I9, but I'm going to let it go for right now just so you can see what's going on, and then we'll come back and edit the formula when we get a chance here. The column index number is actually, again, looking at the table, and you want to ask yourself in which column has the result that I want returned back to the discount column. So is it column 1 or column 2? Well, column 2 is one that has the percentage in it. So it's not a letter. We're used to column letters, but it's actually, these are numbers. So if you had 3 columns, you know, this would be, the ABC would be column 1, your percentage would be 2, the next one would be 3. So, and you manually type that in. And the last one, they are going to have us type something in here which is false. They're not assuming true, but what that means then is that if there isn't a match, if it's not A, B, C, D, or whatever, then it'll return a non-applicable in the formula cell. So that kind of alerts that an error has occurred in your data entry, which is kind of nice. So, alright, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Notice the 10% comes in, which is category A. Okay, now, since this is a function, I mean, we could go back and do it again, or we could use the fill handle to autofill down. But what I wanted to show you, if you autofill down, I'll just go a little ways here, you're going to have some problems. C is 14%, which is right. B, though, that should be 12%. But let's look at the formula here, the function. It's got equal VLOOKUP, C6, which we do want it to look to C6 because that's the lookup value. And then H6 through I10, if you look at your table, H6 through I10, it's getting down to where there's nothing in those bottom two. And if you go much further, if I go down to row 10, notice H10 through I14, there's nothing. There's not even a table there. So keep in mind when you use cell references, when you copy them down, it changes relative to whatever row it is. So in our case, we don't want these rows changing as it copies down. So to prevent that, I'm going to put in a $ in front of the 4 and a $ in front of the 8. So as it copies down, that'll always stay a 4, that will always stay an 8. Let's see what happens when we do that. Now they all have numbers in it, but honestly I would still go through and kind of spot check and make sure that those are correct answers. Okay? Then from there we can go ahead and format these to percentages, E4 through E. Ooh, I need to go down a little further, don't I? Okay, so I've got them all selected. Then we can apply the percent format to those cells. So I'm going to go back to the Home tab, the number group, and we'll choose percentage. Alright, then the net price, and really that should be currency or some type of format there. I guess we'll leave that as is, but that really should be formatted. It's just currency or accounting style, so it has dollar signs. But the net price, we'll start out with an equal sign. Take the list price minus the list price times the discount. So it's going to calculate the multiplication first, and then it'll take that amount and subtract it from D4, which is what we want. So we'll go ahead and press enter to that. We'll get 1680, and we'll go ahead and autofill that down. Okay, so you can see the VLOOKUP table does save you a considerable amount of time. If you had, like I said, 100 of these that you would need to do, instead of manually going and looking in the discount table to see what it is, the VLOOKUP function can do that for you. And if you'll look on page 52, the HLOOKUP is being demonstrated for you. They actually are showing it in the form of a horizontal table. If you'll notice, the gray table is listed horizontally, which, you know, honestly in most cases we usually use vertical, but it can be done horizontally. And so you'll notice there in column G actually is where the HLOOKUP formula would go, and then it's looking at the total amount, which I'm assuming that's average. But anyway, it's looking at F4, and then it's having it look in the table on the right hand side and return the letter grade. So you may want to review that and see how they come up with that. It's the same concept, it's just that instead of vertical, it's looking horizontally.